Hey guys, I'm Amarot and today we shall talk about walls and how to set them up. I wanted to show you more things, how to use Photoshop and so on, but I wanted to get to some exciting practical stuff a little bit sooner, so that's why I'm going to make this video now. We need to go through grids and guides and so on and things like that as well, but first let's talk about some layer effects and about these kinds of walls here. So let's say you need to make some map, or for example some cave or of some dungeon or something like that. Perhaps you want to make world map which has some city walls and castles and so on. So these effects here are going to be very useful for you. Now I've prepared 3 styles here which I use. I usually use one of those two, this one most frequently in recent maps, but this one, for example, is very useful if you want to make something what looks like some sketch or some hand-painted map which is just on some parchment or something like that. So let's get to it. Ctrl N to create a new file, and 1000 by 1000 is okay. Make sure it's RGB color, or that in general that you don't have grayscale. Some people get very confused when they get a grayscale. And okay. So you got our new file here, and we are going to make a map of a cave. First of all, we've got background here and we can't do anything with it. So click on this lock and it's now common layer. Now it's very good practice to never leave your layers named in layer something manner. So double click on its name and rename it to, I don't know, background, for example. Now, let's set something up for our background. So double click on this icon here, on icon of that background, of that layer, and you will get access to layer style. With layer styles, you can do all kinds of funny things, and for background we are going to use pattern overlay. With pattern overlay, here you've got all patterns you've got. I've already shown you how to create your patterns or how to set them up. So these are patterns I've got here right now. And let's use, for example, some paper. Make sure that your blend mode is normal. You can lower opacity down, but usually you will want to have full opacity. And scale, sometimes 100% scale is just something too big, so you may want to lower your scale, sometimes increase it. But in case of textures from video games, especially from World of Warcraft, these textures tend to be very big, and you will quite often want to lower their size or scale to 10, 15, 20% usually. So okay, we've got our paper. Let's say we want to make a paper map or map of cave on a paper. Create a new layer, Ctrl Shift N, and let's name it wall. Now probably the easiest way of doing this is by selecting paint bucket tool with G and just fill everything. And what we can do now is press E to access eraser tool here, and I'm going to use this brush which I already shown you and I shared it with you, this coaster brush, and we can just delete what is going to be part of that cave. So we are now pretty much painting that cave, and as you can see, it's very easy. With this brush, it's just great. This is a very simple, very easy way of creating some cave system very quickly. So we got our cave. We can also use brush again, and the same brush, so this one, to return that wall somewhere where if we removed it from somewhere we didn't want to. So these are our walls. Now let's use layer effects on these walls to make them appear like we want. Now what you can do is use the same pattern as you used on this paper, so it's paper on paper, but to make that black color disappear. But another way, if you use black color like I did, you can actually go here into blend mode for this layer and you can use lighten. And now I'm lightening this background with black color, which doesn't produce any effect at all. If you choose white color, you can do the same with darken. You can just make it disappear like this. So it's still there, but I'm lightening with black color, so it's not doing anything. So my black color disappeared, but I'm going to make those walls I painted appear again by using stroke effect. And stroke effect, I usually use either blend mode normal or overlay. In this case, overlay is probably better. Increase its opacity probably to 100%. It doesn't really matter whether you use position inside, outside, center. There's not that big difference, I would say. And you can change its size if you want it to appear a little bit wider and stronger. So there we go, you got our cave map. And as you can see now, you can paint very easily caves like this. Another thing you can do to highlight these walls a little bit more is use actually inner glow. So layer styles, inner glow. Usually I use overlay. If I want to highlight walls like this for inner glow, I always use overlay pretty much. And technique, in this case precise is better. You can see what precise does. If you've got corner like this, it's going to make corner as well. If you use softer, it's not going to make corner, it's going to go around that corner, so it's softening up hard pointy corners. In this case, that's not what I want to do. I want precise, probably. Opacity 40% usually does the job, or 30 maybe. Size, if you want to make it smaller or bigger, you know, may depend on map a lot. And okay, and we are done pretty much. Now we've got our cave map. It's hand painted, it looks like it's hand painted, but you don't need to go through drawing all those lines here by hand and doing some other crazy stuff. You can do it like this very easily, very quickly, and you can change it easily as well. You know, so this is great. Now another style of walls I use way more often than this one actually is this one, and those are my normal walls, and we are going to change patterns for this. So technique is very similar, just use different pattern. In this case I'm going to use, I don't know, for example something like this. It's a little bit too big, so I'm going to change its scale. It's maybe too small, 50, alright. So just different background, and in this case I'm going to use actually pattern for my walls as well. And for example this one, why not? Too big scale, lower it down. It's usually best to stick to 25 or 50 or 10, because that makes it the most, you know, it isn't blurred. Now that stroke is a little bit too strong in my opinion. So in this case you'd probably want to use a smaller stroke size, so 1 pixel, maybe even lower its opacity down a little bit. Inner glow is usually fine, maybe you want to make a little bit stronger, depends on texture and so on. But in this case I usually use outer glow as well. And outer glow is used in the same way as inner glow, it's just outer one. But in this case I use actually softer, not precise. I don't think that precise looks very good with this. So softer one. Blend mode, in this case darken is best. You can use overlay as well, but usually sometimes it looks weird. In this case it doesn't really matter. So darken blend mode, and opacity 60. In this case it's okay. You can increase it if you want to make it darker. You can change its spread. I usually don't use at all. It doesn't really look very good. I usually use spread 0, but you can increase its size. to again make it appear a little bit darker. And there you go, completely different style, which looks like actual top-down view of that cave, but still it looks, in my opinion, fairly good. Now the third style, this one, uses bevel. If you want to use bevel, I actually recommend to turn stroke completely off. And you can use outer glow as well, or if it's supposed to be some wall which is in exterior, there's light going on that wall and so on, it's not actually walls of cave of some dark place, I recommend using not outer glow but a drop shadow. So first let's turn everything off and let's just use bevel and emboss in the first place. So bevel and emboss, pretty much all the time I use inner bevel. You can use different ones, you can see what it does. But outer bevel, it increases size of your walls pretty much, so you want to use usually really pretty much all the time that inner one. Chisel hard, or you can make it smooth and so on. I think that chisel hard is probably the best for walls in general, because they are made of stone, they are supposed to look a little bit rough on the edges. A depth, I use a maximum one for walls. Direction up, you can flip it, but you can do the same by changing angle of light as well, so it doesn't really matter this one. Size, just how big this is. By the way, you can see that bevel and emboss can be used for painting mountains as well, you know, like this. In this case we want to paint walls, so fairly low one, 5 is probably going to be okay. Soften, just to soften these edges a little bit, you can do it if you want. I'm not going to use this in case of making a cave. And shading, this is important, from which direction is light going from. I usually use 145 and about 10 degrees. If you bump this up, it's going to be from the upside. If you change it to very low, it's going very from the side. Use global light, by the way. I usually use this checkbox because this global light is useful because it's going to make sure that you've got the same angle of light everywhere, and you can just pretty much copy it from one layer to another one. By the way, I don't use these at all, or I actually use them fairly rarely when making coastlines, but that's something I'm going to show you in a different video. So ghost contour, I just pretty much always use the default one, so this one in this case. And with highlight mode and shadow mode, just make sure that it's either lighten or screen for the first one and darken or multiply for the other one with 30% opacity, and that almost all the time does the job. You can decrease that opacity, you can increase it and so on, so you can toy with this a little bit if you need to, but usually 50-50 is what's okay. Maybe in this case that light is perhaps a little bit too hard, so okay, something like this. There's still something missing here now, and that's that shadow. Now we can use outer glow, but it's a little bit weird if you've got light here and you've got darkness or shadow here. So in this case I'm not going to use outer glow, but I'm actually going to use drop shadow. And drop shadow works in pretty much almost the same way like outer glow, it's just moved from that layer. I use usually darken for blend mode, again opacity. In this case I use a little bit higher opacity than for outer glow, so about 80%. Use global light, so I've got the same light source for my shadows like for my bevels. Very useful thing, because even if I change it, those bevels are going to move as well. Now that's why I use global light pretty much all the time. Distance, I usually use 10 pixels and size usually 25. That pretty much all the time does the job. You can increase that distance so it appears a little bit higher, but then it may move away from there, you know, like this. So it depends really. You may even want to use distance 0, but in this case that shadow is going to be here as well. So let's use 10. Spread, I don't use spread very much, but you can, you know, bump it up just a little bit to make it a little bit harder. And just some size, yeah. You can see what this does. So that's, now I've got both light and shadow, and that shadow is going is appearing on the background as well. So that's it, right? 3 ways of making walls, or how to set up your layer effect so you make walls like this. So this one, this one, this one. It depends on you and on what kind of map you want to make. Use any of them you like, or maybe change them a little bit, make your own style, doesn't matter. These are 3 ways I'm making walls personally. So I hope this was useful for you. In the next video we are going to take a look at selections and some ways how to paint walls, for example in dungeons, to make accurate rooms and so on. But that's a little bit lengthy subject, so I decided to leave it for its own separate video. So for now, thanks for watching guys, I hope this was useful, and I'll see you in the next one. Happy map drawing for now.